When tech billionaire David Sterling found his 6-month-old daughter Sophia screaming inconsolably on Flight 847 to Chicago, he never imagined that a mysterious 8-year-old girl named Lily would not only silence his child with a lullaby his dead wife had created, but reveal that his wife Elena wasn't actually dead at all. She was being held captive by the very pharmaceutical company that had supposedly helped save their daughter's life. Before we dive in, make sure to subscribe, give this video a like, and tell us in the comments where in the world you're tuning in from. Now let's begin. David had lost everything once before. 3 months ago, his wife Elena had died in what doctors called a tragic allergic reaction during an experimental treatment for their daughter's rare genetic disorder. Now, as the sole parent to baby Sophia, he carried the crushing weight of keeping his family's biotech empire afloat while raising a child whose medical needs required round-the-clock care. The company Elena had built from nothing, Sterling Biogenetics, was hemorrhaging money without her brilliant mind leading their research team. If he couldn't find a way to stabilize both his daughter's condition and the company's future, he'd lose not just his livelihood, but potentially Sophia's only chance at a normal life. Every day felt like walking a tightrope over an abyss, knowing that one wrong step would cost him the last precious thing he had left in this world. The flight to Chicago was supposed to be routine, a final meeting with investors who might save Sterling Biogenetics from bankruptcy. But Sophia had been crying for 6 straight hours, her tiny face red and blotchy from exhaustion. David had tried everything: formula, diaper changes, walking the aisles, even playing white noise on his phone. Nothing worked. The other passengers shot him increasingly hostile looks, and the flight attendants hovered nearby with barely concealed irritation. "Sir, we really need you to keep her quiet," the head flight attendant said, her professional smile strained. Other passengers are complaining. David felt his face burn with embarrassment and frustration. "I'm doing everything I can. She's been inconsolable since we took off." That's when he noticed her, a small girl with dark curly hair sitting 3 rows back, traveling alone. She had been watching him with curious brown eyes that seemed far too knowing for someone her age. As Sophia's cries reached a new pitch of desperation, the girl unbuckled her seatbelt and walked over. "Excuse me, sir," she said politely. "Would it be okay if I tried something?" David looked down at this child, probably no older than 8, offering to help with his screaming infant. Under normal circumstances, he would have politely declined. But these weren't normal circumstances, and he was desperate. "What did you have in mind?" he asked. "My mom used to sing a special song when I couldn't sleep. Maybe it would help your baby too." Before David could respond, the girl began to sing in a clear, sweet voice that somehow carried over Sophia's cries. "Sleep now, little starling, close your weary eyes. Dream of silver moonbeams dancing in the skies. I'll be here beside you through the longest night. Everything will be okay when morning brings its light." The effect was instantaneous. Sophia's crying stopped mid-wail, her tiny fists unclenching as she stared up at the girl with wide, fascinated eyes. Within moments, she was asleep in David's arms. David stared at the child in shock. "That's impossible," he whispered. "That song. Where did you learn that song?" "My mom taught it to me," Lily said simply. "She said it was very special, that she wrote it herself. She made me promise to remember every word." David's blood ran cold. The lullaby was identical, note for note, word for word, to one Elena had created during her pregnancy. She'd called it Sophia's Song, and had sung it only to him and their daughter. No one else had ever heard it. "What's your mother's name?" David asked, his voice barely steady. "Elena Sterling," the girl replied. "But everyone thinks she's dead." The plane made an emergency landing in Denver after David suffered what appeared to be a panic attack, though he knew it was something far more sinister. As paramedics checked his vitals in the airport medical facility, David couldn't stop staring at Lily, who sat quietly in a corner chair, drawing intricate patterns in a notebook, while a social worker tried unsuccessfully to contact her guardians. "Mr. Sterling, your heart rate is still elevated," the paramedic said, checking the monitor. "We really should take you to the hospital for observation." "I'm fine," David insisted, though his hands were still shaking. "It's just stress." Detective Rachel Morgan approached, her expression serious. "Sir, I understand you had some kind of episode on the plane." The flight crew mentioned something about a child knowing information she shouldn't have access to. David glanced at Lily, who had looked up from her drawing to watch their conversation. That little girl knew a song my wife wrote. A song no one else has ever heard. And where's your wife now? Dead. Supposedly. David's voice cracked on the word. 3 months ago, during a treatment for our daughter's condition. But if this child knows Elena's song. Detective Morgan followed his gaze to Lily. And you've never seen this child before? Never. But she claims Elena Sterling is her mother. The detective frowned. That's concerning, because according to our records, Elena Sterling died 3 months ago at Northwestern Memorial Hospital in Chicago. There's no record of her having any other children besides your daughter Sophia. Then how does she know the song? David demanded. Before the detective could answer, Lily approached them, her notebook clutched to her chest. Excuse me, she said politely. I know you don't believe me about my mom, but I can prove she's alive. She opened her notebook, revealing not childish drawings but detailed sketches of laboratory equipment, chemical formulas, and floor plans of what appeared to be a research facility. These are from the place where they're keeping her, Lily explained. Mom made me memorize everything so I could find help if something happened to her. Detective Morgan examined the sketches, her expression growing increasingly alarmed. These look like pharmaceutical research labs. Highly sophisticated ones. Gene therapy labs, David said, recognizing some of the equipment. This is Neurogen Corporation's main facility in Colorado. The detective looked up sharply. Neurogen, the company that was treating your daughter. David nodded, a sick feeling growing in his stomach. They were our partner on Sophia's treatment protocol. Elena worked closely with her research team. Mom said they found out she discovered something she wasn't supposed to know. Lily continued. So they took her and made everyone think she was dead. She's been trying to find a way to get word out, but they watch her all the time. What kind of discovery? Detective Morgan asked gently. They weren't really trying to cure sick babies, Lily said, her young voice matter of fact. They were using the babies to test something else, something that could change people's memories. David felt the world tilt beneath him. What are you talking about? Your daughter wasn't sick, Lily said, looking directly at him. They made her sick on purpose. Mom figured it out when she realized the same thing happened to other families. They create the illness, then offer the cure, but the real experiment is something else entirely. The implications hit David like a physical blow. They used Sophia as a test subject, and when Mom tried to expose them, they faked her death and took her. Lily finished. She's been trying to complete her research from inside their facility, but she needed someone to get the information out. That's why she taught me the song, so I could find you. Detective Morgan was already on her radio, calling for backup and requesting immediate contact with federal authorities. But David barely heard her. His mind was reeling with the possibility that his wife, his brilliant, beautiful Elena, might still be alive, trapped in some corporate nightmare, while he'd spent 3 months grieving her death. How do I know you're telling the truth? He asked Lily desperately. How do I know this isn't some elaborate hoax? Lily reached into her small backpack and pulled out a sealed envelope. Mom gave me this. She said to only give it to you if I found you. With trembling hands, David opened the envelope. Inside was a single photograph. Elena, very much alive, holding up a recent newspaper. On the back, in her unmistakable handwriting, was a message. David, if you're reading this, Lily found you. Trust her completely. Sophia is in danger, and so are dozens of other children. Neurogen is not what it seems. The treatment they gave Sophia contains a compound that makes children susceptible to memory manipulation. They're planning to use it on a massive scale. I have the evidence, but I need your help to get out. The girl knows where I am. Please hurry. I love you both more than you'll ever know. David looked up at Lily, who was watching him with those impossibly mature eyes. She's really alive? She's really alive, Lily confirmed. But Mr. David, we don't have much time. Mom said they're moving her soon to a place where no one will ever find her. The Neurogen facility outside Boulder looked innocuous enough from the road. A sleek glass building nestled against the foothills, with manicured gardens and a small sign identifying it as a neurological research center. But as David sat in his rental car at 2 a.m., studying the building through binoculars while Lily slept in the back seat with baby Sophia, he could see the truth Elena had discovered armed security guards, electronic gates, and surveillance cameras that tracked every angle. "Are you sure about this?" Detective Morgan asked through his earpiece. She was positioned a half-mile away with FBI backup, but David had insisted on going in first. After all, if Elena was really being held inside, he couldn't risk a full-scale assault that might put her in danger. "I'm sure," David whispered back. "Lily's drawings were perfect. She knows exactly where Elena is being kept." 3 hours earlier, federal investigators had raided Sterling Biogenetics' offices and found devastating evidence. Elena's research notes, hidden in encrypted files, revealed that Neurogen had been systematically poisoning children with rare genetic disorders, then offering experimental treatments that contain a compound called Memorex, a drug that made subjects highly susceptible to memory manipulation and behavioral control. The scope was staggering. Over 200 families across 12 states have been targeted. Their children have been deliberately made sick, treated with Memorex-laced therapy, and then monitored for months afterward. The goal, according to Elena's notes, was to create a generation of children whose memories and behaviors could be controlled remotely. "They're building an army of programmable kids," Special Agent Collins had explained during the briefing. "Children whose loyalty and beliefs can be altered at will. It's the ultimate form of social control." But Elena had figured it out. Her investigations had led her to discover not just the conspiracy, but the location of the main research facility where the Memorex was being produced. When she tried to go to the authorities, Neurogen had struck first, faking her death and taking her captive. Now, as David approached the facility's service entrance using the access codes Lily had memorized, he felt the weight of everything that had been stolen from him. 3 months of grief. 3 months of believing his soulmate was dead. 3 months of struggling alone to care for Sophia while fighting to save the company Elena had built. The service door opened with a soft beep. David slipped inside, following Lily's detailed directions through a maze of corridors lined with laboratories and office spaces. The building felt eerily quiet, with only the hum of electronic equipment and the distant sound of ventilation systems. "Sublevel B, room 147, he whispered to himself, repeating the location Lily had given him. The elevator required a keycard, but Lily had seen where the security guards had a spare. David found it exactly where she'd said it would be, taped under a fire extinguisher bracket. As the elevator descended, David's heart hammered against his ribs. In a few minutes, he would either be reunited with the love of his life or discover that this elaborate story was some kind of cruel hoax. Either way, his world would never be the same. The elevator doors opened onto a sterile white corridor lined with what looked like hospital rooms. Through small windows in the doors, David could see sophisticated medical equipment, computer terminals, and in several rooms, occupied beds. Room 147 was at the end of the hall. David approached slowly, his hands shaking as he peered through the window. There, connected to monitoring equipment and typing at a computer terminal, was Elena. She looked thinner than he remembered, her dark hair pulled back in a simple ponytail, wearing scrubs instead of her usual elegant business attire. But it was undeniably her, the woman he'd married 8 years ago, the brilliant scientist who'd revolutionized gene therapy research, the mother of his child who'd supposedly died in his arms 3 months ago. David swiped the keycard with trembling fingers. The door clicked open. Elena looked up from her computer, and for a moment, they simply stared at each other across the small room. "David," she whispered, her voice breaking. "How did you, Lily? She found you." "Elena." David's voice came out as a choked sob. He crossed the room in 3 quick steps and pulled her in his arms, holding her so tightly he was afraid he might hurt her. But she clung to him just as desperately, her tears soaking his shirt. "I thought you were dead," he whispered into her hair. "I saw you die. I held your hand while you—" "Drugs," Elena said, pulling back to look at his face. "They gave me something to simulate cardiac arrest, then smuggled me out during the confusion. David, they have people everywhere. Doctors, nurses, even some law enforcement. This conspiracy goes deeper than you can imagine." "I know. The FBI found your research. Elena, what they've done to these children is just the beginning," Elena interrupted urgently. "David, the Memorex compound doesn't just make children susceptible to memory manipulation. It creates permanent neural pathways that can be activated remotely. They can literally control people's thoughts and actions from a distance. David felt sick. Sophia, did they? She's been exposed, but not fully programmed. That's why I've been working around the clock to develop a reversal agent. But David, we have to get out of here now. They're planning to move me tomorrow to a facility overseas where alarms began blaring throughout the building. Red emergency lights flashed in the corridor outside. Security breach detected, an automated voice announced, initiating lockdown protocol. Elena grabbed a laptop and a small case of vials from her workstation. They know you're here. We have to go. They ran for the elevator, but it was already locked down. Elena led him to a stairwell, her fingers flying over her phone as she typed. I'm sending everything to Agent Collins, she explained as they climbed. All my research, the reversal formula, the locations of other facilities. Even if they catch us, the truth will get out. They reached the main floor to find chaos. Security guards were running through the hallways, checking rooms and monitoring exits. Through the windows, David could see FBI vehicles surrounding the building. This way, Elena whispered, leading him toward what looked like a supply closet. Maintenance tunnel. It leads to the parking structure. As they crawled through the narrow tunnel, Elena explained what she discovered during her captivity. Neurogen was just one arm of a massive international conspiracy involving pharmaceutical companies, government agencies, and military contractors. The ultimate goal was to create a controllable population, people who would follow orders without question, buy specific products, vote for predetermined candidates, even go to war without understanding why. They started with sick children because desperate parents don't ask enough questions, Elena said as they emerged into the underground parking garage. But the plan was to eventually introduce Memorex into the general population through vaccines, food additives, even water supplies. David's car was exactly where he'd left it, with Lily and Sophia still asleep in the back seat. As he started the engine, FBI vehicles roared into the garage from all directions. David Sterling. Agent Collins called through a bullhorn. Step out of the vehicle with your hands visible. David rolled down his window. Agent Collins, I have Elena. She's alive. The next few minutes were a blur of activity. Federal agents secured the scene while Elena was reunited with Sophia, who immediately stopped fussing the moment her mother held her. Lily woke up and smiled when she saw Elena, as if this entire crazy adventure had gone exactly according to plan. You did it, Elena told the little girl. You brought him to me. I promised I would, Lily replied simply. As they sat in the FBI command vehicle, giving statements and providing evidence, David finally asked the question that had been nagging at him. Elena, who is Lily? How does she know so much about this conspiracy? Elena's expression grew sad. Lily is Subject Zero. She was the first child they tested Memorex on 3 years ago. Her parents brought her to Neurogen for treatment of a supposedly rare neurological condition. David looked at the little girl, who was quietly drawing in her notebook while agents debriefed around them. What happened to her parents? They asked too many questions, Elena said quietly. Like I did. Neurogen couldn't risk exposure, so they eliminated the threats. Lily has been in their custody ever since, used as a test subject for increasingly sophisticated memory manipulation techniques. But she seems so normal, so aware of what's happening. Elena smiled sadly. That's because Lily is extraordinary. Her brain naturally resists the Memorex compound. Instead of becoming controllable, she became hypersensitive to the truth. She can detect lies, see through deceptions, and remember everything with perfect clarity. She's been pretending to be affected while secretly documenting everything she observed. She's been playing the long game, David realized, waiting for the right moment to escape. When she learned that I was developing a reversal agent, she knew that helping me get free was her best chance at exposing the whole conspiracy. 6 months later, David Sterling stood in the sunlit nursery of their Chicago home, watching Elena sing Sophia's song to their daughter while Lily worked on homework at a small desk in the corner. The little girl had officially become part of their family through adoption, though David suspected she'd been choosing her own destiny all along. The Neurogen conspiracy had been the biggest corporate crime story of the decade. Over 40 executives and researchers had been arrested across multiple countries, including Dr. Harrison Vance, the company's CEO, who was facing life in prison for conspiracy, murder, and crimes against humanity. Most importantly, Elena's reversal formula had worked. Of the 200-plus children who had been exposed to Memorex, 187 had been successfully treated, their neural pathways restored to normal function. The remaining children showed significant improvement and were expected to make full recoveries with continued treatment. The Senate hearing is next week, Elena said as she placed Sophia in her crib. The baby had grown into a healthy, happy toddler with no signs of the genetic disorder that had supposedly required Neurogen's intervention. "Are you ready for it?" David asked, wrapping his arms around his wife's waist. "As ready as anyone can be to testify before Congress about a conspiracy to brainwash children," Elena replied with a wry smile. "At least Lily will be there with me." The little girl looked up from her homework. "I remember everything they did," she said matter-of-factly. "Every person, every conversation, every experiment. They won't be able to lie their way out of this one." David marveled at Lily's resilience. Despite everything she'd endured, she'd thrown herself into normal childhood activities with enthusiasm. She was excelling in school, had made friends in the neighborhood, and had even started taking piano lessons. But sometimes, in quiet moments like this, he could see the weight of her experiences in her two knowing eyes. "You know what the best part is?" Elena said, settling into the rocking chair where she'd spent so many nights during Sophia's infancy, back when they'd thought she had a terminal illness. Neurogen thought they were creating an army of controllable children. Instead, they created a generation of kids who can't be lied to. She was right. The children who'd been exposed to Memorex and then treated with Elena's reversal formula had developed an unexpected side effect, an enhanced ability to detect deception and manipulation. Teachers, parents, and counselors were reporting that these kids seemed to have an almost supernatural ability to see through lies, propaganda, and emotional manipulation. "They're going to change the world," Lily said confidently, not looking up from her math homework. "All of us who survive this are going to make sure nothing like it ever happens again." David felt a surge of pride and hope. His family had been through hell, but they'd emerged stronger and more connected than ever. Elena's research was now being used to help children around the world. Sterling Biogenetics had been restructured as a non-profit foundation dedicated to ethical medical research, and they'd found an unexpected daughter who taught them both the true meaning of courage. "I love you both," David said, pulling Elena close while Lily finally looked up from her homework with a smile. "We love you too, Dad," Lily said, using the title she'd chosen for herself just a month after the adoption was finalized. As they settled in for another peaceful evening, no corporate conspiracies, no memory manipulation, no fake deaths, David reflected on how close he'd come to losing everything that mattered. If not for a mysterious little girl with an extraordinary gift and an unbreakable will, his wife would still be captive, his daughter would have grown up as an unwitting test subject, and hundreds of families would have remained trapped in Neurogen's web of lies. Sometimes the most powerful weapon against evil isn't strength or wealth or technology. Sometimes it's just one person who refuses to forget the truth, no matter how much others want to make them forget. And sometimes, just sometimes, that person comes disguised as an 8-year-old girl with a perfect memory and a song that can change everything. The memory thief had been defeated, but more importantly, the memory keeper had won. If this story touched your heart and made you think about the power of truth and family, please hit the like button and subscribe for more incredible true stories that will restore your faith in the human spirit. See you in the next video.